In the wild heart of the American West, a stallion was born, destined to lead and to fight for freedom. His courage made him a legend among his herd. But that same courage was about to lead him into a dark fate. For years, Spirit ran wild, strong, fearless, untamed, until one night a shadow moved through the plains, a mountain lion hunting the young. Without hesitation, Spirit charged in. The night exploded with roars and thundering hooves, until he drove the beast away. As silence returned, the herd rested safe under the stars. But just as peace settled in, a strange light flickered deep in the forest. Curiosity takes over. Spirit glances at his mother, urging her to stay with the herd, then races toward the mysterious glow, unaware that this night will change his life forever. There, he finds a group of horses tied to the trees, frightened and exhausted. They warn him to run, but Spirit, curious as always, ignores them and steps closer. In the shadows, he spots something he's never seen before. Humans, hunters, sleeping by their campfire. Fascinated, Spirit studies them, unaware of the danger. But when he accidentally kicks one of them, the man wakes up in shock and calls the others. They're amazed. A wild stallion like Spirit is rare. As they surround him, Spirit starts exploring their strange tools until the leader rises and tries to grab him. Spirit bolts into the night, fast as the wind, and the hunters charge after him. Using his wits, he turns back, sneaks behind them, and frees every captured horse one by one. Then he races home to his herd, warning them to escape before the humans arrive. Once they're safe, Spirit returns to distract the hunters, leading them deep into the Rocky Mountains. Inside the narrow canyon, Spirit leaps across the cliffs, kicking rocks and pushing them back. But just as he's about to break free, one of the hunters throws a rope around his neck. He struggles, fights back, but more ropes fly from every side. And this time, Spirit can't escape. And suddenly, Spirit sees his mother and the rest of the herd running toward him. For a second, hope lights up his eyes, but it quickly turns to fear. He shouts for them to run away before they get caught too. His mother hesitates, then turns back, leading the herd away to safety. The horses tied to the hunter's camp want to help him, but can't. And within moments, the hunters pull together, drag Spirit forward, and start moving. On the road, Spirit keeps fighting the ropes, trying again and again to break free, but he just can't. Desperate, he calls out for his eagle friend, the one who's always watched over him. Yet the bird can't get close because of the hunters surrounding him. After a long march, they finally reach a massive U.S. Army fort. Spirit stares in shock. Rows of armed soldiers, fenced corrals full of captured horses, and the sound of chains everywhere. The soldiers try to control him, but Spirit refuses to submit. He rears, kicks, and fights back with wild fury. Then the camp's commander appears. He fires a shot into the air to intimidate him, steps closer, and tells his men they've tamed many wild horses before. This one will be no different. Hearing that, Spirit's eyes blaze with anger. He snaps the commander's stick in half, proving he's not afraid. Furious, the soldiers seize him, tie him tight to a wooden post, and bring in the stableman to shave his mane. But as soon as the man approaches, Spirit bites him hard. Enraged, the soldiers restrain him tighter, and the stableman starts cutting his hair. When he tries to nail on the horseshoes, Spirit kicks him so hard he falls unconscious. Chaos erupts. The soldiers rush in, shouting, dragging Spirit away to the training yard, determined to break him once and for all. But this time, Spirit becomes even more defiant. Every soldier who tries to tame him ends up flat on the ground. One after another, they fall, thrown off with unstoppable power. No one can control him. Around the yard, the other horses watch in awe, neighing and cheering as Spirit refuses to give in. Then the camp commander appears, furious at the chaos. The soldiers freeze in fear as Spirit keeps charging, picking, and sending them flying out of the training ring. He gallops across the yard, unstoppable, until he stands face to face with the commander, the only one not backing down. The commander, calm but cold, orders the men to tie Spirit up and deny him food and water for 3 days. The soldiers obey, chaining Spirit to a post in the center of the yard. He struggles endlessly, trying to break free, but the ropes hold tight. That night, under the quiet sky, Spirit lifts his head toward the stars. His eyes show exhaustion and longing. He misses his mother, his herd, his freedom. By the next day, his strength starts to fade. Hungry, thirsty, and weak, he watches the commander drink water right in front of him. And just then, a group of soldiers arrives with a young Native American prisoner, caught stealing from their supplies. The commander orders them to tie the boy up and starve him as punishment too. Spirit stares at the stranger, the boy named Little Creek, curious but cautious. And as Little Creek notices the wild horse watching him, he can't help but smile. A spark of connection flickers between them, even though Spirit refuses to show any interest. That night, Spirit hears Little Creek making strange sounds. At first, he's confused, until he realizes the boy is signaling someone outside the camp. Suddenly, a small knife flies over the fence and lands near Little Creek. He quickly grabs it with his foot before anyone notices. Soon after, the soldiers prepare to head out to guard the railroad from native attacks. The commander asks if it's been 3 days since Spirit was denied food and water, and it has. Spirit looks weak and tired, but the commander decides it's the perfect time to break him. He begins the taming himself, trying to ride Spirit. But even starved, Spirit resists fiercely, running, kicking, and crashing into walls to throw the man off. Still, hunger drains his strength, and finally, Spirit stops. He can't move anymore. The commander smirks in victory, proud to have tamed the wild horse at last. He boasts to his men that with enough time and punishment, any horse can be broken. He orders them to keep building the railroad and to wipe out the native tribes standing in their way. But those words ignite Spirit's fury. With one powerful pull, he tears the reins from the commander's hands, rears up, and sends him flying to the ground. The horses around cheer wildly, and Little Creek watches in awe at Spirit's courage and willpower. Enraged, the commander draws his gun and points it straight at Spirit. Yet Spirit doesn't flinch. He stands tall, fearless. Before the shot is fired, Little Creek breaks free, tackles the commander, and leaps onto Spirit's back. Together, they charge through the camp, freeing the other horses along the way. Little Creek knocks out a soldier, grabs his weapon, and smashes open the stable lock. Spirit, Little Creek, and all the horses burst out into the night, running free, thunder echoing behind them. They scatter across the plains, their chains broken at last. Spirit feels pure joy. He's finally free and ready to return to his herd. But just then, Little Creek whistles. His horse, Rain, gallops toward him. He climbs onto her back, joined by 2 of his friends, who throw their ropes around Spirit again, capturing him for the second time. After escaping the camp, Little Creek and his friends finally reach their village, bringing Spirit with them. They place him inside a wooden corral, and Little Creek gently removes the painful reins from his face. The next morning, Spirit wakes to find fresh apples beside him. He eats happily, tasting kindness for the first time in a long while. That's when he notices Rain, a beautiful mare with soft eyes and a proud spirit. He's instantly drawn to her and tries to impress her, but she barely looks at him. Spirit feels a sting of jealousy when he sees Rain playing joyfully with Little Creek. Later, Little Creek tries once again to tame Spirit, but the wild horse refuses to obey. His friends laugh at his failure, and Spirit chases him playfully out of the corral. Rain rushes over to protect Little Creek, standing between them, ready to fight. Then an idea comes to him. He ties Spirit and Rain together, asking her to calm him down. When he opens the gate, Spirit dashes forward, thinking he's finally free to return to his herd. But Rain stops him. She lies down on the ground, pulling the rope tight so he can't run away. Spirit is surprised, then amazed by her courage. Slowly, they begin to walk together, and Rain starts showing him around the village, introducing him to the people and the life there. Spirit is touched by how kindly the villagers treat their horses, so different from the soldiers' cruelty. A little girl runs up to play with him, and when she trips, Spirit gently nudges her back up so she doesn't cry. Later, he and Rain wander off to eat. She tries to reach an apple hanging high in a tree, but can't. Spirit jumps, grabs it, and hands it to her. Instead of keeping it for herself, Rain shares it with him. They eat together under the sunlight. And for the first time, Spirit begins to feel something new. And then we see Spirit playing with Little Creek, who's still trying to tame him. But no matter what he does, it just doesn't work. So Spirit walks toward him, pretending to finally give in, letting Little Creek think he can ride him. But the second Little Creek tries to mount, Spirit tricks him and throws him straight to the ground. Everyone around bursts out laughing, teasing Little Creek nonstop. That's when Spirit gets annoyed. He stomps, snorts, and scares them all out of the pen before stepping closer to Little Creek again. This time, not in anger, but almost like he's trying to comfort him. Little Creek smiles and promises he won't try to ride him again. Then he opens the gate wide, setting Spirit free. Spirit hesitates for a moment, confused by the sudden act of kindness. He looks at Little Creek one last time, then finally runs out, racing through the open land until he finds Rain. She realizes right away he's free. Spirit asks her to come with him to return to his herd, but Rain refuses. She wants to stay with Little Creek and her people. Suddenly, they both sense danger, the sound of galloping hooves in the distance. The soldiers are coming, heading straight toward the village. Spirit and Rain sprint toward the tribe, trying to warn them. Chaos erupts as the soldiers attack, and despite their simple weapons, the villagers fight back fiercely. Little Creek mounts Rain and charges straight at the army's leader, but the commander fires his gun, and Rain collapses into the river, taking Little Creek down with her. As Little Creek struggles to hold onto the rocks, the commander aims his weapon to finish him, until Spirit bursts in, knocking the man clean off his horse just in time. Then, Spirit dives into the raging river after Rain. The current is strong, but he pushes forward with all his strength, reaching her just before the water drags them both toward the edge. He fights to get her to safety, but the force of the waterfall is too powerful. They're both swept over the cliff and disappear into the roaring mist. Moments later, Spirit climbs out of the water, exhausted but alive. He spots Rain lying by the shore, badly hurt and unable to move. Heartbroken, he lies down beside her, keeping her warm through the cold, silent night. And soon after, the soldiers find Spirit's trail. They surround him, capture him, and leave Rain behind, too injured to move, assuming she won't survive. Spirit fights with everything he has, desperate not to leave her, but he's overpowered. When he sees Rain lose consciousness, he believes she's gone and finally stops resisting. The soldiers drag him away. Once they leave, Little Creek arrives and rushes to Rain's side. He's heartbroken, but relieved when he realizes she's still alive. As he takes care of her, one thought burns in his mind. Spirit saved his life, and now it's his turn to save Spirit. Meanwhile, Spirit is loaded onto a train filled with captured horses from Little Creek's tribe. They recognize him instantly and cheer up when they see him, but Spirit stands silently, eyes down, crushed by loss. For the first time, he feels hopeless, missing his freedom, his herd, and the open wild that once belonged to him. Hours later, the train stops at a new site. The soldiers unload all the horses, and Spirit looks around confused. Then he overhears the men talking. They need the horses to haul the heavy locomotives up the mountain. He realizes what's coming next. At the same time, Little Creek is already on his way, riding fast through the night to rescue Spirit. But Spirit doesn't know that yet. Back on the mountain, the soldiers tie ropes around every horse, including Spirit, forcing them to pull a massive steam engine up the steep slope. The air is thick with smoke. The ground trembles under their hooves, and the men shout orders as the chain of horses struggles forward, every step heavier than the last. And just then, Spirit notices the train tracks curving toward the valley, the very place where his herd lives. His heart stops. He plants his hooves firmly in the ground and refuses to move another inch. The men shout, whip, and pull, but Spirit stands his ground. He realizes that if the horses stop pulling, the train will roll backward down the mountain. That's when an idea sparks in his mind. He suddenly drops, pretending to collapse, motionless, as if dead. The guards panic, worried he'll block the way, so they quickly unchain him to move him aside. But the moment the chains fall, Spirit leaps to his feet, slamming into the men with all his strength. He breaks free, charging toward the other horses. One by one, he snaps their chains apart until every single horse is free. He calls out for them to run, and they do, thundering down the slope as the soldiers scramble to stop the train sliding backward. Before Spirit can escape, a group of soldiers grab him again, wrapping him in heavy chains. He kicks, bucks, and fights until the chains snap loose. Then he sees it, the train behind him losing control, wheels screeching, smoke pouring out as it speeds straight toward him. Spirit gallops down the mountain, dodging falling rocks as the train barrels after him. The cars crash together. A deafening explosion bursts through the valley. Fire races across the forest, smoke lighting up the sky. Spirit looks back, breathing hard, proud and fierce. He's done it. He's destroyed their machine. But the flames are spreading fast. He runs through the burning woods until suddenly his chain catches on a tree trunk. He pulls and struggles, but it's no use. The fire's closing in. Just as the flames reach him, Little Creek appears out of nowhere. He cuts the chain, and together they sprint through the fire, leaping straight into the river below. The cold water swallows them whole, Spirit fades into darkness. When he wakes, he finds Little Creek beside him, safe, smiling, holding out an apple. Spirit slowly gets up, realizing his friend saved him once again. Then, as Little Creek sits by the riverbank, Spirit nudges him playfully into the water. They splash and laugh together, joy returning after all the chaos. For the first time in a long while, Spirit feels truly free and deeply grateful for the friend who never gave up on him. Suddenly, the camp commander arrived with a group of soldiers, and they opened fire on them. Carrick tried to run, but he stumbled and fell to the ground. Spirit turned back fast to help him up, and together they escaped through the chaos. The commander and his men chased them through the valley until they reached a rocky mountain area. Spirit and Carrick climbed up quickly, but the soldiers were right behind them. Carrick grabbed a fallen branch and wedged it between the rocks, turning it into a trap. One of the soldiers fell right into it, and another crashed against the rocks, trying to follow. Spirit stood at the very edge, just one wrong step away from falling. But he still helped Carrick fight back. Then he ran higher up the mountain until he reached the top and realized there was nowhere left to go. The soldiers were closing in. Spirit looked across the wide gap between the cliffs. The other side was far, almost impossible to reach. But he gathered every bit of courage he had and charged forward with all his strength. He leapt into the air, flying through the open sky. The commander and his soldiers froze in awe as they watched Spirit soar. And against all odds, he made it. He landed safely on the other side. The commander looked at him with silent respect. When one soldier raised his weapon to shoot, the commander stopped him and with a nod showed his admiration for Spirit's bravery. Then he and his men slowly turned back. Spirit and Carrick were finally free. Overwhelmed with joy, they danced and laughed together. Carrick climbed onto Spirit's back, and the two raced across the plains, heading straight toward Carrick's tribe. When they arrived, Spirit felt a wave of sadness, remembering Rain. But suddenly, Carrick whistled, and Rain appeared, running toward them. Spirit's eyes lit up. She was alive. He ran to her, and they spun around each other, full of happiness. Then they returned to Carrick, who hugged Rain gently, promising he'd never forget her. He looked at Spirit and asked him to take care of her, always. Spirit stepped closer, pressing his head against Carrick's, a final goodbye between friends. Then he turned and galloped away with Rain, both free at last. As they ran across the open land, the great eagle appeared above them, calling out proudly. Spirit had returned home. The herd greeted him with joy, and his mother nuzzled him, tears of happiness in her eyes. Together, Spirit and Rain raced with the wind, wild and free, just as they were always meant to be. In the dazzling heart of America's greatest circus, one performance changed everything. Beneath the bright lights, a fearless rider named Milagro performs her final breathtaking act. Watched by her husband, Jim, and their little daughter, Lucky, sitting proudly in the crowd. Lucky laughs, enjoying her strawberries, while her mother dances with her horse, graceful, unstoppable. But in a single tragic moment, the crowd gasps. Milagro falls and never rises again. Jim is shattered. From that day on, he can't stand the sight of horses. Lost in grief, he leaves little Lucky in the care of his sister Cora and his father James, and disappears to work on the railroads, far from the life he once knew. Years pass. Lucky grows up in her grandfather's mansion, now 10 years old, smart, restless, and lonely. One morning, as she plays with a squirrel in her room, Aunt Cora walks in, scolding her for not studying physics. Cora reminds her that Grandpa James is running for governor, and that Lucky must act like a proper young lady. But Lucky sighs, tired of lessons and manners. She complains she has no friends, no adventures, and no freedom. Only endless studying about trains and numbers she doesn't care about. Just then, Grandpa James walks in, asking Cora to help him fix his tie. An important group of officials and reporters is arriving for an interview about his campaign. As he explains the plan, he quietly admits he's nervous, worried that Lucky might cause chaos and embarrass him in front of the cameras. But Cora smiles and promises that Lucky will behave perfectly. Relieved, James and Cora head downstairs. The moment they leave, the little squirrel sneaks back into Lucky's room. Lucky laughs and chases it, but the squirrel jumps out the window, racing through the house. Lucky runs after it, right as the guests step inside. In an instant, everything turns into chaos. Lucky swings down from the ceiling, hanging upside down in front of everyone, just as a huge picture frame crashes beside her, tearing Grandpa's portrait. Then, the squirrel lands right on James's face, while the photographers snap their pictures non-stop. The next morning, that exact photo hits the front page of every newspaper. Grandpa James, covered in fur and shock, humiliated. He finally loses his temper. He decides to send Lucky away with Aunt Cora to live with her father, Jim. And so, Cora and Lucky board the train, heading toward Jim's town. As the train moves, Cora quietly reads the newspapers, all showing Grandpa James's embarrassing photo. Lucky notices the look on her face, then turns away, clearly upset. She admits she's angry, not just about the photo, but because she's being sent to live with the father who left her years ago. Lucky tells Cora that Jim never tried to contact her, not once in 10 years. She feels like this trip is a punishment from her grandfather, not a reunion. Cora tries to calm her, saying it's only for the summer, just until the elections are over. Then they'll go back home. She defends Jim, saying he didn't abandon Lucky on purpose. He simply couldn't take care of her back then. It was a decision the whole family made together. But Lucky doesn't believe a word of it. Deep down, she's sure her father chose to leave her. After a while, Cora steps out to get some drinks from the station. Lucky opens the window, letting the wind rush in. And suddenly, she sees him, a wild horse running beside the train. Strong, proud, and unlike any horse she's ever seen. Behind him runs a herd of wild horses, his family. Lucky's eyes light up with wonder, her heart racing with excitement and something deeper. A connection. She can't help herself. She jumps to another carriage, then another, trying to keep up with the horse as the train speeds ahead. But just then, Cora returns and realizes Lucky is gone. When she spots her niece walking dangerously along the edge of the moving train, Cora panics and rushes toward the back carriage, shouting her name as the wind roars around them. And then, Lucky finally reaches the last carriage. Through the open door, she watches the wild horse and his herd racing beside the train. Powerful, free, breathtaking. The stallion slows down, his eyes locking with hers. For a moment, it feels like time stops. Lucky leans forward, reaching out her hand, trying to touch him. But suddenly, she loses her balance. She slips, the ground rushing beneath her, until a stranger grabs her arm just in time. It's Hendrix, a man who warns her with a cold smile. Wild horses can be dangerous, kid. Just then, Cora runs up, terrified. She thanks Hendrix for saving Lucky and quickly pulls her back inside. Moments later, the train reaches the station. Lucky looks around, disappointed. Her father isn't there to meet them. Meanwhile, Hendrix steps off the train with his crew. He tells them he spotted a herd of wild horses nearby, and if they catch and sell them, they'll make enough money for tickets home and plenty left to spend. Lucky overhears everything. Her heart burns with anger and worry for those horses. Then, something catches her eye. Music, colors, cheering. A horse show is happening nearby. While Cora is distracted, Lucky sneaks away toward the festival. She's amazed by the stunning horses performing in the arena. On stage, the announcer, Al Granger, proudly introduces his daughter, Prue, who inherited his passion for horses. Prue performs a graceful routine, her horse shining under the sun. Then she spots Lucky in the crowd and instantly recognizes her. She walks over, smiling warmly, and says, "You're Milagros' daughter, aren't you?" Lucky nods, surprised. Prue hands her a familiar scarf, the same one her mother once gave away. Lucky holds it tight, her eyes lighting up with emotion as the show continues around them. A few moments later, Cora finds Lucky, worried sick after searching everywhere for her. They still don't know where Jim's house is, until a cheeky little boy named Snips appears with his tiny donkey. He offers to show them the way for just 1 cent. Cora agrees, pays him, and asks for Jim's house. Snips points to a random one, pretending it's the right place. But before they move, his older sister Abigail shows up. She throws her rope, catches Snips, and ties him up before he can scam anyone else. Abigail apologizes to Cora, returns the coin, and introduces herself to Lucky. When she hears Lucky's full name, she smiles and says, "Your mother was famous around here. Welcome to Miradero." Just then, they hear Al Granger calling Abigail's name, her turn at the horse festival. She waves goodbye and rides off quickly. On their way to Jim's house, Lucky keeps talking to her aunt. She admits she's fallen in love with horses ever since she saw 2 girls her age riding at the festival. But Cora changes the subject right away. She doesn't want Lucky getting attached to horses. To her, that love is what took Milagros' life. She trusted her horse too much, and it cost her everything. When they finally reach the house, Jim is waiting at the door. He welcomes them warmly and leads Lucky upstairs to her new room. The walls covered in strawberry wallpaper, her favorite since childhood. When Jim notices the scarf, he gently asks where she got it. Lucky smiles and says, "Mom's friend gave it to me." He looks at her for a moment and says softly, "You've grown so much. You look just like her." Suddenly, they hear Cora screaming downstairs. She spotted a mouse. Jim laughs, excuses himself, and rushes down to help. Later that night, Lucky starts unpacking her clothes, but then she notices something strange. A small crack behind the closet. She pulls it open and finds a hidden room. Inside are her mother's old clothes, riding gear, and posters from her horse shows. Lucky runs her fingers across the dusty fabric, eyes wide with wonder. She lets her hair down, smiling as if she's found a piece of her mom. Then she hears it, a faint, familiar neigh, the same wild horse she saw from the train. She rushes to the window and spots movement near the stables. Without a second thought, Lucky runs outside. She follows the sound and finds the stables, and beyond them, a fenced field. But the sound changes. Now it's pain. She peers inside and realizes the horse is being hurt. From a distance, Prue tells her that the stable belongs to them, but her father, Al Granger, has rented it out to a group of wranglers. Suddenly, the stable door bursts open. The wild horse breaks free, throwing Hendrix off his back. The man hits the ground hard, and the horse charges straight at him. But Hendrix barely escapes, jumping over the fence just in time. Breathing heavily, he turns to Lucky and growls, "I told you, stay away from these horses. They're dangerous." Moments later, his crew regroups and traps the horse again. They tie him with ropes, dragging and yelling as he fights to break free. Prue runs to her father, shouting for help. Granger storms in. Furious, he orders Hendrix and his men to stop, yelling that he won't allow cruelty on his land. Embarrassed, they apologize and back off. But once Granger leaves, Hendrix smirks. He tells his men that if they can tame this horse, they'll make a fortune. They decide to continue the plan tomorrow, tying the horse tightly to the fence. After they're gone, Lucky steps closer. She carefully unties the ropes, her heart pounding. The wild horse looks at her, proud, fierce, free. She whispers softly, "I'll call you Spirit." Prue joins her, and the two girls sit together, talking and laughing under the quiet night sky. A new friendship begins, and so does a bond that will change everything. That night, Lucky sits down to dinner with her dad, Jim, and her aunt. As they talk, Jim notices a picture in the newspaper. His father holding a squirrel. Lucky tenses up, afraid it might remind him of the time the press took that photo because of her. But to her surprise, Jim just laughs at the photo. Seizing the moment, Lucky smiles and says, "Dad, I want to raise a horse." The laughter fades. Jim looks at her, confused, until he realizes she means that wild horse from the stables. His face hardens. "No, Lucky. No horses. Not ever." His voice trembles slightly as he adds, "I can't forget what happened to your mother." Lucky's smile disappears. She pushes her chair back, hurt, and walks upstairs without another word. The next morning, she slips out quietly and heads straight to the stables. There, she finds Prue, who's brushing her own horse. They start talking, and Prue explains, "Wild horses need patience. You have to earn their trust. Show him you're calm and confident. That's how they start to believe in you." Lucky nods and walks over to Spirit. She offers him a potato, but he refuses. Then, Abigail shows up with a bright red apple and grins. "Try this. Horses love apples." Lucky holds it out, and Spirit slowly takes it from her hand. Her eyes light up. He finally accepted her. Later that night, she finds a wooden box of apples by the door. Jim must have picked them from the garden. Smiling, she carries them back to Spirit. Under the soft glow of the moon, Lucky feeds him one apple after another. For the first time, Spirit seems calm, almost happy. And in that quiet moment, a real bond begins to grow between them. That evening, Lucky hangs out with Prue and Abigail near the stables. But from a distance, Hendrix watches them carefully. And he notices something. Spirit has started to trust her. The next morning, Lucky climbs onto Spirit's back for the very first time. At that exact moment, Snips swings open the stable gate, and Spirit bolts, racing toward the mountains with Lucky holding on tight. Prue and Abigail see her speeding away and instantly take off on their horses to help. Meanwhile, Snips panics and runs to tell Jim what happened. Jim's face turns pale. He and Granger grab their gear and ride hard toward the mountains. Up there, Spirit gallops across steep cliffs while Lucky struggles to keep her balance. Behind her, Prue and Abigail shout directions, trying to guide her safely down. But when they realize the path ahead is broken, they yell, "Jump! Now!" Lucky leaps just in time, landing in her friend's arms, while Spirit keeps running into the wild without her. Moments later, Jim and Granger arrive. Jim rushes to Lucky, shaken and furious. "You could have been killed!" he snaps, pulling her close. Back home, the argument continues. "You never listen, Lucky. You're too stubborn. I'm sending you back to your grandfather." Lucky's heart breaks. "You're leaving me again," she whispers, then runs to her room in tears. That night, unable to sleep, she quietly sneaks out, grabbing a few apples and heading toward the forest. There, by the old railway tracks, she finds Spirit and his family. They surround her gently, and she offers them the apples with a smile. For a moment, everything feels peaceful, until Hendrix and his men appear from the dark, ropes in hand. "Run!" Lucky yells, but Hendrix shoves her aside and charges forward. The train whistle screams as they'll force the wild horses into cargo cars. Spirit fights back, but they can't catch him. Hiding nearby, Lucky overhears them talking. They're taking the train to the port to smuggle the horses away by ship. As the train disappears into the distance, Spirit turns to Lucky, eyes burning with determination. He knows she's the only one who can help him save his family. Days pass, and Spirit's trust in Lucky grows stronger. But after what she saw, Lucky can't rest. Hendrix has captured the wild horses, and time is running out. She rushes to Granger's stable, where she finds Prue and Abigail. Lucky tells them everything, how Hendrix plans to ship the horses away by cargo boat. "We have to stop that train before it reaches the port," she insists. Prue pulls out a map, studying it closely. "The port's too far," she says. "Even if we follow the tracks, we'll never catch up." Lucky pauses, then remembers the physics lessons she once hated. For the first time, they actually make sense. She quickly calculates the train's speed and route. "It has to stop every 100 miles to refill water," she explains, pointing at a station marked beside a massive water tank. "If we take the shortcut through the mountains, we can reach it before they do." Prue frowns. "Through the mountains? That's dangerous." Lucky nods. "It's our only chance, and we can't free the horses unless the train stops." Just then, Abigail runs in, overhearing their plan. At first, she and Prue hesitate. It's risky, maybe too risky, but they can't let Lucky go alone. So they all saddle up, Lucky on Spirit, Prue and Abigail on their own horses, and race toward the mountains. High above, they reach a plateau split by a deep valley and a broken wooden bridge. "It's falling apart!" Abigail shouts. They circle back, searching for another way, and finally decide to jump from a closer ledge. Prue goes first. She makes it. Then Abigail. Lucky takes a deep breath and kicks forward, but the ledge crumbles under Spirit's hooves, and the two plunge into the valley below. Dust rises everywhere. For a moment, silence. Then Spirit stands, shaken but unhurt. Lucky climbs back up on his back, and they find a narrow, rocky trail. It's steep and deadly, but Lucky trusts Spirit completely. Step by step, he moves across the sharp cliffs, and soon Prue and Abigail follow. Hearts pounding. Finally, they make it to the other side, bruised, breathless, but safe. And just ahead, they spot the giant water tank. They've made it. They'll camp here for the night, because tomorrow everything will be decided. At sunrise, Lucky and her friends reach the water tank, just as the train thunders into view. Meanwhile, back in town, Granger walks into his stable and finds Snips hiding there. When he hears that Lucky, Prue, and Abigail went after Hendrix to free the wild horses, panic hits him hard. He rushes straight to Jim's house. "Your daughter's in danger," he says, breathless. Jim's face turns pale. Without a word, he unlocks the shed beside his home, revealing a custom rail cart he built years ago. He called it Mila, after his wife. Without hesitation, the two men jump aboard and speed off down the tracks to save the girls. Back by the water tank, Lucky wakes to the distant roar of the train. It's early, too early. Spirit bolts toward the sound, and Lucky realizes the train arrived ahead of schedule. She wakes Prue and Abigail, and they all race down the hill. But Hendrix spots Spirit. "Catch that horse!" he yells. His men throw ropes, trapping Spirit and forcing him onto the train before Lucky can reach him. The train surges forward, leaving dust and heartbreak behind. Lucky stands frozen, her best friend taken, her plan shattered. Tears fill her eyes, but Prue grabs her shoulder. "It's not over," she says. "We can still make it to the port before they sail." Hope sparks again. Lucky wipes her tears, mounts up, and they all ride hard toward the docks. By the time they arrive, the scene is chaos. The train unloading, crates everywhere, the cargo ship waiting to depart. Lucky spots Spirit locked in a cart. Without thinking, she leaps onto the moving train, breaks into the car, and frees him. But the other horses are already being lifted onto the ship. Lucky climbs onto a towering crane, Spirit at her side. The wind howls, the sea roars beneath them. Then she jumps, a fearless leap through the air, landing on the deck of the ship. The final rescue has begun. At that same moment, Jim and Granger reach the port. Just as they arrive, Jim sees Lucky, leaping onto the ship with Spirit. His heart stops. The ship is already moving, but this time, Jim refuses to lose his daughter again. He, Cora, and Granger grab a small boat and row hard after the ship. Meanwhile, aboard the deck, Lucky searches every corner for the locked horses. Finally, she finds them, frightened but still fighting. One by one, she breaks the locks and sets them free. But Hendrix and his men spot her. They throw ropes, trying to capture Spirit again. Hendrix manages to tie him down until Lucky jumps on his back and charges straight at the villain. Spirit's power knocks Hendrix off balance, and he falls into the sea below. At that moment, Lucky sees her father's boat approaching. She smiles through tears and then jumps into the water with Spirit beside her. The rest of the horses leap in after them, swimming toward freedom. Jim dives in to save his daughter, but before he can reach her, Spirit rises from beneath the waves, lifting both of them to safety. Together, they all make it to shore. On the beach, the horses run free, neighing in joy. Lucky turns to her father, breathless, and apologizes, but Jim shakes his head and pulls her into a hug. He tells her that if her mother were here, she would have done the same, and that he's never been prouder. Granger soon captures Hendrix and his gang. Handing them over to the sheriff, justice is served. Later, Lucky leads Spirit and the herd back to the wild, their true home. Tears fill her eyes as she hugs Spirit goodbye, whispering thanks before letting him go. Back home, Aunt Cora packs for their return to the city, but Lucky asks for one last thing, to visit the town's first horse festival. Cora smiles and agrees. Lucky wears her mother's dress and walks beside her father through the crowd. Jim tells her this festival was her mother's favorite place. Then, on stage, Jim takes the microphone and says with a trembling voice, "I once let my daughter go, but I'll never let her go again." He asks Lucky to stay and live with him, and she happily agrees. The crowd cheers. Jim starts to sing softly to his daughter, and the girls pull Lucky in to dance. Laughter fills the air, and the music rises as the story comes to an end. And that's how Lucky and Spirit found freedom, together.